Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Administrator Milgram, for being here. I'm a 30-year lawman. I was an old sheriff in the Fort Bend County, Texas, and spent a great deal of time working with the DEA through the HIDA program. For those on this committee, those watching, if you don't know what HIDA is, it stands for High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area or Program. It was created by Congress with the Anti-Drug Abuse Act of 1988 and provides assistance to federal, state, and local and tribal law enforcement agencies operating in areas determined to be critical drug trafficking regions in the United States. It's administered under the Office of National Drug Control Policy, under the Executive Office of the President. There are currently 33 HIDAs across this 50 states, and there are 4 of them in the great state of Texas. I think the one I belong to was the most successful. I believe you're familiar with Mr. McDaniels. I spoke to him yesterday. He wanted me to tell you hello, but he said he wants his quarterly reports. He hasn't been receiving his quarterly reports, so get those quarterly reports to him if you don't mind. According to the website, the DEA plays a very active role. You have like 1,500 or so authorized special agents dedicated to the program. Is that correct?
I'd have to get back to you on the specific number, but yes, we have a large number of agents that work on HIDA across the United States.
Quite a few. Great, great. So I want to ask you a few questions to educate myself and other members of this committee as it relates to what HIDA teams are doing for the American people. And so how do HIDA teams play a role working with local jurisdictions to combat the fentanyl crisis?
So first I would say, Congressman, that in addition to my current role, when I was the state attorney general for the state of New Jersey, I had the privilege to sit on 2 HIDAs, both the New York HIDA and the Philadelphia HIDA. And so I've had experience throughout my career on working with HIDA. And it's an incredible organization that brings together state, local law enforcement with federal law enforcement, everyone working as a team, sharing information. And right now we're working across the country with HIDA. Some of the cases I just described to you have been done by HIDA enforcement groups. What we are doing is very actively trying to pull together through our counter threat teams. They are located, there's a global one now in Virginia, and we are locating them also in all of our regional field divisions. So by the end of this year, we'll have counter threat teams in every field division. The idea is to be able to share our current information on those 2 cartels with HIDA, and then action facilitators, associates, and members of those cartels who we know are operating in the United States.
All right. You mentioned in your written testimony, I guess 8 pages, no talk of HIDA in here at all. I'm surprised there wasn't even a paragraph in there about HIDA. But talk about the Sinaloa and the Jalisco cartels. You know, Texas is faced with threats, obviously, bordering with Mexico from other cartels. What's the rationale with focusing on just those 2?
So one of the things we did when I came in was look at who is most responsible for the American deaths that we're seeing. And we very quickly identified that it is these 2 major cartels in Mexico. They are the largest cartels. In some instances, they do work with smaller cartels like the Gulf Cartel or the Northeast Cartel. We also track them because we know they're working with those larger cartels. But right now, with the CDC reported today for 2022, 110,511 Americans have died from drug poisonings. Yeah. So we have to be relentlessly focused on the people most responsible.
Is there a more dangerous drug than fentanyl out there that my residents, district members, Texas, are concerned about more than fentanyl?
Can I answer that in 2 ways? First, by saying widespread, fentanyl is the deadliest drug in the United States of America that we have ever faced. What we are tracking and what we are concerned about is that we have now shifted to synthetic or man-made drugs. Right. The only limit on that and what can be created are the chemicals that can be purchased. Right. So today, fentanyl is the deadliest drug, but I want to be, I want to be clear in saying we are actively tracking all of this to make sure that there's not a deadlier drug that gets created.
Are there any other plans, are there any plans at all to move HIDA from the Executive Office of the President to another department? OCDEF, anything, you know, it's separate funding. Is there any plan to do any of that? There's rumors.
I have not heard that rumor.
Beautiful. I'd say one issue I have with my short time left, I see that your budget requests $7 million for zero-emission vehicles. I do believe that you could take that money and spend it elsewhere. tackling the most devastating drug crisis in the history of our country. So I want to thank you for your time. Please, Mike, again, Mr. McDaniels would like those reports, but thank you for being here. I yield
Thank
back.
you.